Today, I am joined by Alexa Linton, and I'm so excited for this conversation. It's going to be it's like a challenging one for me as the host because Alexa has so many areas of expertise. And I was chatting with her beforehand, and I was like, there's so many things that we could get into. So get ready because this conversation is going to dive into all sorts of interesting topics. I think the two big umbrellas that we're going to cover. One is more on the animal communicator side of things. Alexa is an animal communicator, and I know you all are fascinated by that. So we will definitely start there. And my hope is that we also get to dive a bit into Alexa's expertise as a human osteopath and just learning more about your bodies as riders and things that you might not already be tuned into. So we have a really fascinating conversation ahead of us, and Alexa has made time for us. We're recording this on the weekend, and Alexa, I appreciate you so much for making the time and being here and sharing your expertise with us.
Oh, so happy to be invited. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Will you tell us a bit about your story and your career today, kind of what your focus is?
Absolutely. It's as you say, varied. I am one of those people that gets bored doing one thing, so I have always have a few different things going on. Some of you may know me from my Whole Horse podcast, and I am now at 9 seasons, which is pretty exciting. And through that lens of being just a total horse geek and a horse lover, um, I run a membership program called the Whole Horse Collective for horse people that really want to dive deeper into some of these topics we're going to get into today. And my perspective is constantly shifting due to my um, now almost full-time job, it feels like, of taking care of 4 horses. We moved to our own property about 8 months ago, and it's just been like, building and creating spaces and living in the Pacific Northwest with horses. For any of you out there doing that, kudos to you. It is not easy. This time of year is so muddy and wet and challenging. So yeah, doing that. And then I have a full-time human osteopathy practice as well. So I see clients in my house, and I just love that. It feels like a lovely way to contribute to my community, and it's like it works with my brain and my geekiness on another level that I really, really enjoy. And then every now and again, still, I do a horse day here and there doing equine therapy. I worked with the cutest little, like, 28-year-old mini yesterday named Sparky, and it was very, very sweet. So, I just love getting my hands on horses and learning more from them. So, yeah, it's a bit of what I'm up to.
When you're doing equine therapy, what were you helping Sparky with? What do people call you
So
for?
yeah, so yesterday with Sparky, he is having issues with eating. Over the last couple of months, his appetite has really decreased, and so I've known his person for a long time. We went to equine therapy school, the same equine therapy school, and so she tends to reach out to me when she's got weird stuff that she can't figure out. And so I actually connected, like, this is probably a good story. I connected with him at a distance initially. She asked me to just check in, and she was very busy, and I was like, I'll just check in, see what's going on. And he was immediately like, I need osteopathy. And I'm like, okay. So we planned a session. I went out yesterday, and it's really interesting with minis, actually. I got my first mini about a year and a half ago, and one thing that I realized was they rarely have body work because they're not ridden. It's just a little bit of a different, yeah, like some do, absolutely, but a lot of them don't. And I noticed with my pony Gwynna, she had a lot of body stuff going on, that we unpacked when she arrived with me. And he was similar. He, at 20, I don't remember, 28, I think, years old, he had, been a driving horse for years and done a lot of stuff in 4-H. And so, he had quite a lot of structural stuff going on, including cranial. things happening, which of course is affecting the jaw and the digestive system and just his general sense of well-being. So, so that's what we did to yesterday in our session. Yeah.
And now Sparky's hopefully feeling quite a bit better today.
I hope so. He was like, he had a couple of good like moments of stillness and release. And yeah, his mom and I will keep in touch and see how his appetite is coming along. But it would be great to see that come back online. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So sometimes as a host in these topics, it's like a blessing and a curse. I have the genuine like elementary questions to make sure that I have my head around it. Equine therapy, is that role itself, is it like therapy for a human? Like when you say you
So
connected with him and understood that he needed some
yeah.
body work?
So basically with that, I was using a sort of an animal communication connection, and I know it can be a little hard to wrap your head around the sense that I wasn't with him. We lived close together, so I was like 8 minutes down the road, but I'd never met Sparky before, and I just had a picture of him, and I connected in and through the animal communicator lens was able to get some more information. The equine sport therapy was I was trained at a school that's no longer here in BC. So I'm in Canada and British Columbia. And my teacher, Dave, I have him on my podcast a little while back, and he's just he's one of those pioneers of the field. And he actually was the first person that taught me about animal communication and energy work and sort of that side of horses. And at the time, I was just a total skeptic. I was really black and white thinker. I was like, no, this is not a thing. And then I went and worked on more and more and more horses. And every time it would be like, oh, yeah, like, huh, okay, that shifted something or that changed something. And so that was actually, so that was 20 years ago now, 2003. So 22 years ago that I started school with him. And it really changed everything about my life. And shifted the way that I viewed how horses and animals in general work. And it really opened the door to my training to do animal communication and other energy work at that time. Yeah. And we also learned, massage and acupressure and other body work and manual therapy. But it was this combination that was really quite life changing for me.
Got
Mm,
it. Okay. So
yeah.
equine therapy really covers a number of modalities that you can use on a
Yeah,
horse.
and he had sort of had the term equine sport therapy within his school. Equine therapy is a really interesting broad term because I've also been trained in what's called equine facilitated learning, which some of you may have heard of, and equine facilitated therapy or coaching. And so that is a little bit more turned the other direction where the human is receiving the care or the work, so to speak, facilitated through the connection with horses. So it's just a little bit different. So mine was more like for the horses, okay, going out doing a session for that particular horse that was having a challenge of some nature. Yeah, yeah,
Got it. Okay. Thank you. You
yeah. No
set the table
problem.
for me at least. One of just to kind of start at the beginning with our questions from members, and we got quite a few of them ahead of time. I think people are really hungry for information on this topic because they want to do right by their horse, and
Yeah,
this is can be a gateway for that. So to start, Lee asked a few questions, and I'm going to bundle them all together just so you can take it wherever you want. She
yeah.
said, very generally, how does Alexa talk to animals? How does she know that she's communicating with the correct horse? And can anyone do it? How did you find out that you had the skill?
Yeah, so first of all, yes, anybody can do it. I think that oftentimes we feel like, oh my gosh, this is a gift that someone else has, and there's no way, you're born with it or not. And yeah, I would debunk that right out of the gate here, because I will say that, yeah, I did not have this skill. It was very hard won. It was years of sort of patience and and figuring out essentially. And it's sort of like anything. It's like a muscle. If you use it, it grows and gets stronger, and if you don't, it doesn't. And one of the parts of building that muscle is to connect more with what we call the subtle senses. So, our subtle sense of hearing, our subtle sense of vision, feel, all these things that are all present for us. But oftentimes it's like if we imagine um, information coming into our system, very often from a young age, we sort of say, well, that information is not relevant. We kind of go, yeah, no, I don't need all of that information. It's too much, right? Or like people think I'm weird when I talk about it or whatever. So we sort of cut off those subtle senses, except for like the very basics. And most of us can have had the experience of like, oh, I just feel like my horse needs to see the vet today, or oh, like there's just something off, or I'm just feeling like they need a diet change for some reason. Like most of us have had an experience of like what I would call animal communication, but we don't always realize it. So that was how it started for me, is I would get kind of like body sensations, or I would get just like felt sense. I'm a very kinesthetic person, so that subtle sense of feel or touch was like really the big one that came through. And oftentimes people have one or another that is like more strong initially. Where yeah, they have oh, like this picture came up for me, it was so weird, right? Or they have a feeling in their body, like oh, I've got just this feeling in my gut that something's not right, or whatever. And so really animal communication is just like any building any skill, like your riding skill or whatever. It's like if I put the practice in and take the time and do the work on it, it will start to build and grow. And that's what I try to share with my community members, and like people that are in my classes and things as well. To just, yeah, just take the time. And it can be really hard because the doubts all creep in, right? Because it's not like something really concrete that we can say, oh, I was right or I was wrong. Um, so yeah, it takes time. And even for me, there's still moments where I feel like, oh, am I connecting to the right horse? Like, is this the right thing? But it, as you go through, you actually start to feel, oh yeah, like I get a felt sense of like who this horse is and what they're about, what's going on in their bodies. And it's been really fun for me because I connect with horses and animals all over the world, um, doing that. So you get to have like people that wouldn't necessarily connect with you, and animals as well coming in and being hopefully benefited by some of the work. Yeah, yeah.
That is really cool and not what I was expecting to hear. I did think it was an innate gift.
Yeah, right. Most people do. Yeah, yeah,
Wh- And you've been at it for 20 plus years. So you have had, I mean, you say put in the time and put in the practice. That's a lot of time and practice. What did the work look like for you? Is that time spent in the presence of horses just being and observing? And what that work looked like for you, is that the same way that you recommend other people get more in tune with their horse and what they're
yeah.
trying to tell them?
That's such a great question. So I started, and one thing I definitely recommend is mentorship in this area. Like anything, like if you're learning a particular type of riding or wanting to increase your skill, like having someone who's been on that path and kind of knows some of the steps, because there's one of the big pieces is actually our sense of settledness. So for a lot of us, this information doesn't necessarily land or become really conscious because we're pretty busy all the time and we've got a lot going on, and maybe like life is busy and our minds are busy. This type of work requires what we call like a still, centered, grounded space. It requires us to just like get super present, super settled in ourselves, and actually the biggest thing is very neutral, to get very neutral, because if we're, especially when we're working on our own horses, it's so hard to be neutral. Like even as a body worker, it's challenging, and as an animal communicator, even more so. So what I mean by that is like, how close am I to myself and my own issues and my own fear and judgment and whatever, that I'm literally like, the information that I'm getting is all coming through that very strong lens. And how close am I to my horse, and just this sense of neutrality of like, whatever comes up for them is great. Like I'm open, I'm available to like being surprised or having, information that I may have not thought of come through, right? And so that's what I mean by neutrality. And that takes practice to find that space. Because, I've heard stories, and I've had that too, where I go out and I'm like, why is every horse telling me that, the same story? Like, it's so weird. Then I'm like, uh-oh, uh-oh, I have a thing going on and I'm not as neutral as I thought I was, right? And how can I start to shift that, where I can actually see what's truly going on for the horse? And that's the case with anything that we do, whether it's animal communication or just generally supporting our horses or ourselves through whatever's going on, right? If we're not able to kind of find that neutral space, often we're missing maybe pieces of that puzzle.
This I've had the biggest smile on my face as you've been describing this, because sometimes we have these weekly conversations on topics that are so varied, and sometimes it becomes clear that there's this connecting thread. And I feel like neutral should be our word of like 2026, because
Hmm.
whether somebody's talking about horse care or horse riding, or in your case, we're talking about communicating with horses, the ability to be neutral is such a common thread. And you kind of just solidified it for me. I feel like, Pantone does their color of the year every
Hmm.
year. I feel like neutral should be our just theme of 2026, because it's such a powerful tool, and in practicing it, it benefits us as humans too. Like everyone talks about the benefits of meditation and just being, and having kind of a greater purpose in learning how to be neutral, for horse people especially, makes it more fun to practice that versus,
Absolutely.
it's hard for us to do stuff for ourselves, but when it comes to the horses, I think it's easier for at least the people
Totally.
listening to
Totally.
find
Like,
motivation.
like hands up, how many people have body work for their horses but don't have it for themselves, right?
Totally. All of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about that, we had got a question from Tanya ahead of time, and she's kind of asking for us to take it a step further. So she said, are there any special exercises that we can do to practice tuning into our horses?
Yeah. I mean, some, let's start with the simplest. And it seems super obvious and probably even a little cliche at this point, but uh, one is literally just taking the agenda out of your horse time. Um, I know for a lot of us, it's like, okay, we might feel like I've got a goal, or I've got to, I want to, go to this show or do this thing or whatnot, which is great. And also remembering that horses thrive with just chill time, and that's where they're their most themselves, is if we're just like hanging out with them, watching, and you'll get a ton of information from them just doing that, putting a chair in their paddock or sitting against a fence post and just like observing your horse, like from that neutral space, and just spending time, that's not structured, that's not doing something, that isn't asking anything of them. And that can also even just come in like, going out for a grazing walk, or something really relaxing with them that they enjoy. And so that's a part of it. The nice thing about sitting in the paddock with them is that you can take the time at that point to really connect to your breath. And I really encourage like a even a breath that goes through the diaphragm, but also, and we're going to talk about this at the end as well, also imagining the balloon of the breath goes all the way down to the pelvic floor. As riders, this is like one of those exercises that is so helpful, because the more that your pelvic floor can move and be free, the happier your horse is, the happier you are. So it also, though, settles our body. So we sort of settle into a parasympathetic state, and that's a much more receptive state, peaceful state, often for this kind of communication to start landing. So it also brings us, when we're more parasympathetic, it brings us more into our heart center, which is exactly where we want to start um, connecting to our horses from, right? So if we're, you've probably talked about nervous systems on this pod, but this sense of if we're in a sympathetic state where we're like really wired, or we're like really tense, or we're running to do other things, or we're fighting our horse around something, who knows? That's definitely not going to be the place you're going to get information of this sort. You want to actually have a really nice nervous system shift into like that parasympathetic rest digest zone, where you both can be settled. And that is, often a really great place to start. That feeling that you're in your heart, and you can, potentially even reach out and connect to your horse's heart, sort of have that sense of connection, can be really, really potent. Yeah.
I feel like I should say you're welcome to everybody who's listening, because I've been on mute, but I've been like deep breathing. So you haven't had to listen to me deep breathe, but I'm trying to feel what it feels like to breathe from the diaphragm. And I like you were describing, and I mean, it feels good.
Yeah, right?
I'm like, I should come to all my conversations like this.
Just, yeah. And one of the other things that I use, and one of my, several of my teachers use, is around the sense of grounding. So again, this can be sort of like a cliche thing when we're talking about this type of work, but it works so well. So this connection down to our feet, because very often as humans, we like love to exist up in our heads and thinking and working through stuff. This is not a thinking practice. This is a body practice and a being practice. So the more that we can sink down into our feet, and if something like I use a visualization of a tree and its roots, and use my breath. I use that big long out breath to like send my roots down into the earth. If that's helpful, I find it's a huge one for me. Like, really brings me back into my body, back into myself, and I'm able to actually like, it's kind of like I turn a frequency on where I can actually receive really different information from that level than I would if I was, up in my head. Mm-hmm.
In this like society, I guess, or day and age, it seems like productivity is like go, 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 get more done, check more off. And so sitting there and being doesn't match what that understanding of productivity is, but it is, when you do it, it's like the most productive thing that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But trusting that is so hard. It is so counter to like my personal nature, but logically I know it is so much more productive than like sitting in front of a screen or rushing to tack up so you get all the exercises done. And it's like, that there's so much to be accomplished from what you're describing.
Well, and the neat thing is, if we think about it from a nervous system level, so let's go back into that space. When we think about like vagal tone, for example, so the parasympathetic system, the idea of vagal tone is that the ventral vagal system of, if we're looking at the polyvagal theory, that ventral vagal system is all about social engagement. We are interacting daily, probably for most of you, with a social animal. Horses are community-based. They're mammals just like us with the same nervous systems, and their way of being is actually incredibly similar to us when we look at herd dynamics and the way that they interact. And so the cool thing is that it's like that tortoise and the hare kind of, image. Like, if we take the time to actually settle our systems, to connect to this parasympathetic system and therefore to our hearts, therefore to our faces, even like our ability to like emote and be with our horses, also our capacities. Like sometimes when we go to work with our horses, we are so over threshold already, but we don't realize it until we have a, an outburst, or we get angry, or we, whatever it is, we sort of lose our cool. And then we're like, what happened? It's like, oh, I was already pushed over my threshold. And then this one little thing happened and I couldn't handle it. So imagine that this work is actually increasing your capacity for staying connected to your horse. And like, then how much better is your time spent with your horse? I mean, really, why are we there? Truly, is like we want to feel that beautiful connection that comes when things are, we're in the flow of that moment. And it's very hard to get there if we're up in our flight fight space, or we're attempting to, we're really imposing a big agenda on, maybe what needs to be a slower, like just more restful time for us and our horses, right? And they may be sharing communication that's not even, I guess it's animal communication in a way, but that's more obvious, like, hey, you need to just chill. This is a lot, right? Through behavior or other things that they're saying, like, okay, like, let's find a different space here to engage together, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I didn't sign up for you to arrive with all this agenda and anxiety and like on me.
Tension, right?
Totally.
When we think of that pelvic floor that we're connecting into, I went into a pelvic floor therapist at one point, and she said, "Did you know that the pelvic floor is actually the very first muscle that tightens when you're stressed?" Or this group of 5 muscles. And I was like, I did not know that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So for most of us, there's an incredible amount of tension in that area that we're not even really aware of. We're more aware, okay, my shoulders are really tight. Oh, I can feel, these other places in my body. Oh, I'm clenching my jaw. These are more obvious things. But, oftentimes, yeah, it's like, okay, if I'm really paying attention, am I holding tension? Am I clenched in areas maybe I shouldn't be? That would like directly affect my riding, my connection with my horse. Hmm.
Okay, we definitely want to circle back to pelvic floor when we get to this
Totally.
second part of the conversation. Just wait 1 second. I feel like my audio is going to be messed
Uh-huh.
up for a minute. 1 second. Okay. Oh, wait, let me turn this off too.
Baby time.
He woke up. Now I'm in his nursery.
Yes.
Okay, question by different people, and do they convert riders?
Oh, I missed that last piece.
Yeah, I wonder if my internet got lower in here. Am I coming through clear now?
You're coming through more clear, but your picture is really fuzzy. So yeah, I think the internet is probably
All
just
right,
a little
just
bit
wait.
less there. Yeah.
Just wait. Okay, I think we're better now.
Okay, awesome. Yep, that's better.
Okay, Joanna said, how do most horses feel about being ridden by different people, and do they communicate their preferred ride or even have preferred riders?
Oh, good question. Yes. Yes, they do. Um, yeah, typically, and it really depends on the horse. Some horses are very, I'm going to go back here. So, just like humans, some humans are like what I would consider like anchor humans, where they can be around a group of like totally stressed out other humans and somehow miraculously stay chill. I don't know how they do it. I'm not that human. So, yeah. And then you have, a spectrum all the way through to the highly sensitive horse or human, right? So, and that one is incredibly affected by different energies, different tension levels, ways of being, stuff that maybe that human brings to the barn, all those things. And you have that even with like, um, you know, people that are handling them, like, barn care, barn managers, and people that are in their space as well. So, and it really, really depends. So you get oftentimes your more anchor horses are like the ones you see like in, the absolute saints in a lesson program that are kind of like, oh, whatever happens, oh, it's fine. And sometimes they can be, those types of horses are also fairly shut down. They've kind of figured out, okay, like if I just kind of numb out a little bit, I can get through here and it'll be okay. I have a herd of uh, 3 sensitive mares and a recovering stoic gelding who is actually probably my most sensitive horse. I'm realizing now. So it's been really interesting to travel with this crew and realize how impacted they are by their environment, including the people in it. So yes, that all being a long-winded way of saying that they can be quite affected, and it is good to really listen to them if there's a behavioral issue coming up, or if there's, like a change in how, your horse. So what I tend to say is if someone else is riding one of my horses, I will spend the first chunk of times that they ride and handle my horse with them. Number one, to provide an anchoring for my horse and let them know I'm watching, I'm observing, I'm making sure that this works for you. And yeah, to also just make sure that it's like a good fit for everybody concerned, because at the end of the day, you know, yeah, finding that right fit is going to be what also allows your horse to continue to be happy in their work and be comfortable. And so yeah, just pay attention, right? Same with trainers. I tend not to be a proponent of sending my horses away for training. Number one, because I can't observe oftentimes what's going on. um, and if I do think about doing that, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to be here for the first, like every day for the first 2 weeks or something like that, observing the care and the handling and the riding and how things are going, so I can advocate. Because at the end of the day, our horses don't have a voice in the same way that we do to speak up and say like, this is not working for me, or I'm really having a challenge with this. So yeah, so that's what I would say is like, finding the right team for your horses is one of the biggest and most important things that we do, whether it's our veterinarian or our body worker or our farrier or our other riders, or our trainer. Like all of that, oftentimes, if we're really watching and observing and paying attention to how our horses are being in those spaces, we'll get a lot of information, and letting your horse know that like they're allowed to tell you when it's not working as well. I know that sounds weird, but it is really important that they feel like they can speak up or share before it becomes a major behavioral issue that really impacts even your relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
Our next question is from Jordan. She said, I have a very sensitive horse, and there are a few situations where I know I need to manage his stress.
Yep.
Moving barns, trailer rides, competitions, etc. And she said she does so with ulcer preventatives. So her first question is, what other situations or instances might be difficult for our horses that we don't think about?
Yeah. So that's such a good question. So a couple of things that we don't think about. Number one is past events. So things like weaning. Many of our horses have had early weaning, prior to 6 months, and weaning that has been done prematurely oftentimes. That causes a major rupture for a lot of horses. That is really tricky, especially for our more sensitive horses. So that's something. I know it's a weird thing to think about because, you may be like, my horse is now 15. That was a long time ago, but it can still impact the way that their nervous system is wired now. So that's one thing. Also, leaving their mom, leaving their other herd mates. Every time you move, it's not just moving the barns, it's leaving that horse that was beside them for 3 years, or leaving the comfort of, a particular scenario. So with our horses that are more sensitive, any kind of change can make a difference. And some of it we don't even realize is actually landing for them. So with a sensitive horse, some of the things that can actually impact them are stuff that we don't even think about, like the clicking of electric fences, or having, sometimes for some horses, even having, I know this will be a little controversial, but even having metal shoes on all 4 feet because they can't really ground themselves on the earth, can be challenging for them. Yeah, trailering places, of course. But oftentimes the ones that we don't think about are the more the herd ruptures, because even if they're not sharing space like directly with another horse, they're sharing space indirectly, and they're making connections every time you're at a different barn. So just being really aware and doing your best to make that transition as gentle and easy as possible. And I do that by like setting them up for success. So even if it looks like, if I'm moving barns, can I take them to that other barn and back a few times? Can I get them used to that new area that they're going to be in? If they're switching paddocks, can I observe and watch whether their baseline of stress goes up or down, with the change? Because sometimes, like if a sensitive horse is at the end of a row, they're really aware that, like, oh my gosh, there's wilderness out there and I might get eaten, and I don't have anybody protecting me, right? So these are things that we may not even consider, but for certain horses, it's a big deal for them. So yeah.
Wow, that it's so helpful. I mean, you're helping us like put ourselves in their shoes a bit, so much more than we do on just when we're on autopilot. You helped me segue to this next question
Mm.
really cleanly. She said, I would love some advice on how to prepare my herd for the loss of their leader. I have 3 mares together who are extremely close, and the lead mare is my retired eventing mare who is very strongly the boss. They love her dearly, and she's aging. I worry about how they'll cope when we lose her, as neither of the other two are very strong leader types. She said, should I get another horse before she passes or wait and give them alone time after? Any tips or advice is appreciated.
Oh gosh, such a good question. Such a hard question, honestly. I have to say, it depends. This is the kind of area that I like. I actually have, one of, I call my animal communication sessions transition support sessions for this exact reason. And I also wrote a book on death and dying, because it is so challenging, not just for us, but for the herd. I actually have the same issue happening with my herd right now. And so I just completely feel for this gal and what you're going through, because I get it. My 26-year-old is the total matriarch, head of the herd, and everybody's completely connected to her, and it's definitely a concern for me about when she goes and what that's going to look like. I would say if it was me, that uh probably not bringing in another horse before that happens, only because it's a significant stressor for your older mare to have to handle another energy in the space, and also to just change what I call the constellation or the matrix of the herd. So I would probably not do that, and then I would consider that sort of after the fact. You will find that the other two horses do really have a lot of shifting to do after, in terms of how they settle out with with the change in the matrix, the change in this like way that they've been set up for so long. And I think oftentimes if we can let that settle, then we have a better sense of what kind of horse we want to bring into that herd, because you'll often be surprised about who steps up, or what shifts in that dynamic. Now, that being said, having three horses is definitely, especially in a herd, that's my kind of three or four horses is my fave number, because it allows everybody, two horses can go down for a rest, one is watching, you can take, one out, two are left behind. Like there's a lot of benefits to having three horses. So, yeah, I think, when the time comes, getting some support, whether from someone like me or someone else, and also, yeah, just really observing your other mares after the fact about what, because even if we did get another horse, they might not be that exact match for what they're needing in the herd. So that's one reason I would say just to wait and find that real match, as much as you possibly can. Yeah, yeah. Great
Not
question.
not to make a morbid question even more morbid, but when you have a herd like that or any sort of like close relationships
Hmm.
in animals and one of them passes, is it helpful for the others to see the horse after they've
Oh yeah,
passed?
absolutely. I am 100% proponent of letting them be with the body. Absolutely. They need that closure. They're because of the way they are in community, as much as we can allow them to really recognize the change in state of that horse. Because oftentimes we want to sort of protect them from it. And I would be one of those people that says, nope, like let them go and sniff, go and be with, if they're a herd, like letting them out in that field with them. You can obviously be there supervising, but it is important that they experience, like they're different now. Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad you do this work to help people because just this touching on this topic makes me feel so emotional.
Oh, it's a big one. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. Yes. Yeah.
On I mean, I was going to say lighter topic, but this involves transition too. Linda said we had one of our herd of 3 horses leave for a new home. We normally trailer off property on a regular basis, so how do they process the departure and no return of their buddy? How long will the other two miss him or look for him to return? Do they have a sense of time passing? Is it like a day or a week? I think she's looking for any sort of like
Yeah.
guidance so maybe she
Oh,
can provide comfort.
it's a really challenging one, and it really depends on the nature of the bond. But oftentimes, yeah, this is the tricky part about having domesticated horses is, we as humans are, shifting the goalposts a little bit. We're, changing things up. And and naturally it happens all the time, in particular if we're boarding out or things like that. There's horses coming and going. And so I do think to a point, many horses get used to it, but it doesn't mean that it's not really challenging and often heartbreaking for them too. So being aware that there will be, a period of sort of maybe confusion or grief that happens when another horse leaves. Now, this is an area where I love animal communication, because I will actually like, go in and sort of show them in my mind a picture of, maybe I know where that other horse went, and maybe I know that they're safe. Um, I can maybe show them what I see, or, what's been communicated to me around that, and essentially help them to, have a sense like that herd mate is safe and okay. Because it's challenging because there isn't any closure. So that's what I do, and anybody can really do it. It's like I literally just send a picture of like, this is where they went, this is what's going on. They're good, they're healthy, yeah, and that can be somewhat soothing. Yeah, but it does take time for sure. Hmm.
I so appreciate how you're fielding these questions because of course it's case by case and you're helping us understand like how you approach it and what it might look like without being able to like without being able to give the full color that you'd be able to give if you were like in a proper session. It's
Yeah.
so helpful. Mickey has a question. She said she has a very fit event horse who's suddenly on stall rest for 3 to 4
Mm,
months after an unexpected surgery. She said the full recovery will be over a year. It's been devastating for me. She's a trooper, but after the loss of her longtime best friend earlier this year, I just want to help her. She said they do all the physical things they can, massage, magna waves,
mhm.
lots of treats and attention, but she's worried about the horse's long-term mental health. She's good
Yeah.
in her stall, but loves being outside. Any thoughts would be great.
Yeah. So, I would say this, I find here that thinking outside the box can be really, really supportive. So, this is where, adding fun stuff and play and enrichment can be really great. So, when I'm talking enrichment, I'm like, okay, can we add, a treat ball or puzzles or, um, making sure she always has forage in front of her, and something to pick at, even if it's straw or, something really low nutrition content. Keeping her as well enriched as possible on that level. And if it's possible to even do walks out and see her friends, that can be really helpful. Or have some grazing time or just some sunshine. And as well, adding in some different types of training. So this may be where you're like, hey, I want to explore like clicker training or positive reinforcement or, different ways of being with my horse on that level. So make it a time where you can actually, the two of you can learn something new together. Um, and she can stay enriched. Often, like it's like with dogs, where they say that like when they're doing brain work, it's actually more tiring than just like the physical work. So like yeah, add in fun stuff like that, and there's really great resources out there now for that kind of stuff. So yeah, yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me for more resources on those levels if you like. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
love those suggestions. And Mickey, I'm so sorry that that
Yeah,
is the situation, but
totally.
your horse is lucky that you're thinking through all of that. Um, our final question as we come to the end here is from Sam. She said, when you're dealing with a complete unknown situation, what's your approach? She said that she got a kill pen mare that she has
Hmm.
zero history on. So
Yeah.
she's just trying to figure out like, where do I start?
Totally. Yeah. So it's so challenging, especially when we're just like completely unaware of the history, to know, okay, what is my baseline? What is this mare's, kind of natural, like who is she really, as opposed to like what's showing up now. And oftentimes remember that there's going to be a thawing out period. So when she lands in a safe place, an environment where she can kind of unpack things, there may be a time where you get some very interesting behaviors and things popping up that can be quite challenging. I invite you to hopefully just stick it through. That will not last forever, but it is the nervous system coming down from what we can assume was a really, really stressful time. So, supporting her in whatever way possible, like I said with the last question, like enrichment, positive reinforcement is amazing in these cases. That's what I did with my one mare that had a lot of past trauma. I added positive reinforcement. It was an absolute game changer for us because it literally let her brain think differently, and it didn't require her to, yeah, deal with pressure that was triggering or hard for her. So so that might be something you consider to bring in as well. But I often just say with these kind of cases, it's like it's time. It's just time. So spend time with her, get to know her, really watch, and see what's going on, and really kind of change her view of how humans show up for her. Essentially, it's like you kind of love them better a little bit in this situation. Yeah,
Another lucky horse right there.
no kidding. Yeah.
Um, well, this has been such a treat. Like, I truly feel like I could chat with you forever and keep learning from you forever. And I know we didn't even get to the human side of things, but you gave us so much to work with just on the connecting and understanding with our horses. So thank you so much for that. Will you tell us where people can find you and anything else you want to share in case they want to reach out or work with
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. So, yeah, it's my well, I have a couple websites. AlexaLinton.com is where you can book a session with me if you wanted to do some animal communication. And if you're on Vancouver Island, you're welcome to come and see me for human osteopathy. So, yeah, head there. As well, I have a website called Outside the Box Equine, which is all about sort of outside the box horsekeeping. So I have all my online courses based there. I do a course in applied kinesiology for horses. I have a course on building track systems because I love track systems, and a course called Redefining Equine, which is all about sort of really changing the way we see our relationships with horses. So that's over there, as well as my membership, the Whole Horse Collective. So if you wanted to learn more about any of this stuff, that's where to do it. And yeah, perfect.
Well, thank goodness that there are places that people can go to connect with you and learn more from you because I know that they'll be feeling the same thing for me, which is just like, I want more, which is a great place. It's great to leave people wanting more,
Mm,
but they really have somewhere they can go to get more. So I'm
absolutely.
so glad about that. And if anybody does reach out who's listening, please let us know and share your experience because I know others will be interested in hearing about it. So you can share in the Facebook group anything that you follow up on based on this conversation. We would love to hear it. And Alexa, thank you again. I'm so happy to know you and happy to be able to share just your knowledge with our community. We really appreciate it.
Aw, thanks for reaching out. It's been really a pleasure.
And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.